we want people to do things, we have to be there to help them.
Yeah.
I'm a coach, and I train people all the time, and I don't make people do anything I'm not willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. I have to be willing to do the workouts. And sometimes I'm like, who programmed this? Gee, what you know, so if I am doing it with them, I'm like, man, I'm making you guys work hard. But they're, you know, it helps them get through it when they know that I'm willing to do it too. So.
Yes, exactly.
You told me on the questions I had you answer that growing up with your dad was like being in basic training from the time you were born to the time you went to college.
That sounds tough.
Yeah. And so can you kind of tell me about being raised by someone that has that kind of discipline?
Well, and yes, it was inflicted discipline, yet not practiced discipline.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a discipline to make his life easy and to show out what he had, yet he never practiced the values that he beat into me on it. So it was super tough, you know, not wanting to disappoint anybody, you know, bringing home, I can't remember if it was a 98 or a 99 in history, and you know, saying, well, where are the other 2 points? You know, if you you know, won a race, 5K, well, how many people were in the field?
Yeah.
Those type questions, no doubt that, you know, he loved me, but he had his own demons, losing a sister while he was in high school, and he turned to alcohol and drugs as a result of it. So initially there was a lot of fuel and anger against him to, all right, you nickname for me is Puss. I'll show you, you know, in the military and, you know, races and everything. But eventually I outgrew that. And,
you
know, he got addicted to depression pills and, of course, alcohol, and had a stroke. Like you, Shane, you know, did some rehab and was getting better. But whenever he realized he wasn't going to get 100% better, he gave up on that.
And then well, at least with the brain injury, I'm not 100% sure if it's the same with a stroke, but if I stop my training, I atrophy really quick.
Yes. And he did. Yeah, exactly. So, and he coming from a background of no discipline himself, and, you know, he wasn't really willing to adjust his lifestyle, you know, to meet what he could do and work with what he had.
Was he in the military?
No.
Okay.
No. My uncle and I talk about it all the time. Could have directed his aggression and everything in the right direction with law enforcement or the military, but I don't know if he could have followed orders that well.
Sure.
I didn't know if I could when I joined the National Guard, but I soon learned I could.
Just let go of your pride, you know. It's okay. Like, it's fine to let somebody tell you what to do. See, I had that problem growing up. I couldn't handle anybody telling me what to do. Didn't matter what authority. It's because I never saw a consequence. I was like, what are you going to do? You're going to kick me out of school? Fine, I'll just go home and sit at home. That's fine. You know, there was nothing that they could do that would bother me, which made them even more upset. Yeah. So it wasn't until I was an adult that I'm like, man, I am totally disorganized with this thing. Like, I actually need some accountability here.
Yeah.
I need to know that there's boundaries. So.
Cool. That must be a little nice. I am constantly walking the line and do not want to get one foot off of it. So.
You mentioned in the questions I asked you also that you would tell me about the time you pushed your friend in the Boston Marathon who was mobility impaired.
Yes. So that's a huge story all into itself. With Paisley, I ran the first race with her, which was the Little Rock Marathon. And we ran it in 3:45. And so my thought was, well, maybe I could qualify her for Boston. So I called the Boston Athletic Commission and asked them, what do I need to do to qualify pushing someone like, you know, Dick Hoyt, you know, I'd seen. And they said, you need to run a qualifying race in the same condition you would compete in, meaning pushing someone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So trained in the Texas heat all summer, found the Scranton Marathon up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Steamtown Marathon. So me and my wife and Paisley flew up there and ran the Steamtown Marathon 3:09, qualified with a minute to spare.
Awesome.
So it came up time to register in the spring, and I was filling out the form, and the youngest age was 18. So I called and was like, hey, what do I need to do to fill out on here, because Paisley's only 3. Like, you can't run Boston with a 3-year-old, you know, no way. So I was like, all right. I was like, so it has to be somebody over 18. So yes. So again, we trained, everything for the ESPN filming, and at that race, again, ran a 3:09.
So that ESPN thing was before you qualified to do the Boston Marathon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I qualified Paisley several times during that time phase, but at the end, on that last one, I knew I was making the transition into running with adults and running with other people, not just Paisley, giving other people the opportunity. And so ran a 3:09 and called Boston, said, hey, I ran a 3:09 pushing somebody in a qualifying race. I want to put somebody over 18 in the chair. And they said, okay, fill out the form. So I filled out my paperwork. They called a couple of weeks later and said, sorry, same condition means the same person.
Oh, man.
I said, okay, are you serious? Like, at this point, somebody over 18 with a disability qualifying race, I'm in. Like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time I was in the gym and I saw another ESPN story about a cheerleader, and I couldn't really make it out because there wasn't sound, but I came back home and looked it up, and it was about these triplets who were born in Tennessee, and one of them, they were premature, and one of them was born with cerebral palsy, and she wanted to be a cheerleader for inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about how, she was finishing her cheering career and she didn't know what she was going to do next because it was kind of scary, and that she wanted to be just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I got their number from ESPN and called them up, which is always an awkward thing. Like, hey, I'm not a creep. You want to give me your kid for 3 hours so I can take them off away from you and run. So I had called her mom, and she watched the story. And if you watch the story, at first she's like, when she watched it, she goes, this guy's a turd. I'm not calling him, and all, but she finished it out, and they called me. And so I told her, like, hey, you don't get to cheer anymore. How about you join my running team of 2, and I run 26 miles and you cheer.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, sounds good. So I went back home and watched her story, and she had called me on her birthday, which is May 20th.
Okay.
So it's like, I have to make this happen tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to call in every marathon that I knew of. And I actually called Kim Rooster with Ainsley's Angels.
Yeah.
And Kim was a Marine, is a Marine. And I was like, hey, can you get us a Marine Corps marathon? He said, I sent him the story, and he said, it's done. He said,
cool.
You tell her it's on. So I trained pushing Pepper and Paisley and Rebel to simulate her weight, and would send her videos of the training. And so we were set to meet up in Washington, and on the way up, her mom told her, said, I gave her the option. I was like, Gabby, do you want to run really fast, and try to blow the doors off, or you just want to run and have a good time, and we'll stop and high-five people and, make a party of it? She goes, I want to run to win. She told her mom that, and her mom said, well, I don't know if he can push you as fast as he does Paisley. You're a lot bigger. She said, oh, he's a beast. And so when I met her, they told me that story. I was like, yeah, I'm a 5'7", 165-pound beast, let me tell you. So we ran, took off in Boston, and coming over at one point, fairly early into it, going up a hill, she goes, all right, Heath, it's time for beast mode. And I looked at her and said, Gabby, I've been in beast mode for 3 miles.
This whole time.
I don't get any more beastly than this. But coming over into Georgetown, she looked back and she said, today, Heath, I'm not disabled. She said, today I'm just like everybody else.
That's so awesome.
Wow.
And dude, I gave her everything I had that day.
How?
We qualified for Boston that day,
awesome.
and it was only a few minutes off my solo PR, which was like 5 years earlier.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So we ran a lot of races in between there and Boston, but then finally we ran Boston together. But how it ties back in with the previous question was so I'd worked for this goal for, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, trying to qualify for Boston with someone with special needs and close that loop. The night before we were set to run, I got a call, and my dad had shot himself on the back porch.
Oh, man.
So, what do you do at that point? You pack it in, or do you say, hey, my whole life you beat on me to make me tough.
Well, yeah.
And you throw this one challenge at me right here at the end.
I'm going to prove I'm tough.
Yeah. So didn't tell Gabby. I didn't want to ruin her.
Sure.
Story, and all. And, didn't really faze me. I'm been taught to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
So, but that's, the culmination of all those years, and kind of all coming together at once. Yeah, running with Gabby was, my best days have been with her. Yeah. She's gotten me, like I say, I tell her I like myself better when I'm with her, or anybody that I'm running with. I'm just, that's cool. They make me a better person.
Yeah. It's important to hang out with people like that, that make you feel like you matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We have so many funny stories with her, out on the race course and everything, running her. She had a little headband thing that kept on sliding up her head and made her look weird while we were running. And so I finally pushed it down farther and it slid down over her eyes. And so we're just running and talking, and we passed somebody and she goes, "Baby, can you see?" And she goes, "No, but it's okay." And I look down and she's blindfolded. I'm like, "Gabby, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, we were talking. I didn't want you to make you stop." I'm like, right around the race course, you're running blindfolded. So, but we were running in Nashville and had a flat on the chair.
Oh man! And so we didn't even think about that being a possibility.
Yeah. So it was. Luckily, it was a Saturday marathon, and so we ran 8 miles on a flat. We actually passed a bicycle shop. So I propped her up on a curb and pulled the tire off and ran inside. They patched the tire and then put it back on. So we ran in
some quick thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, we run in the Little Rock Marathon and barely finished it before he got called for sleet and snowstorms and everything. And we were out there, and Boston was in a rainstorm. So her parents are awesome, man. They put rain gear on her, and we strap her in with a ratchet strap to keep her arms from popping out and rubbing the wheels. And
sure,
they see me 3 or 4 hours later, and she and I go out and have a good time.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I don't know if you would necessarily call yourself this, but
he is.
And so I want to know what it's like being a hero to so many of these people you run with in the race. Like, that's who I feel like would call you this the most, is a hero.
No, I do not. I have so much more that I need to give and need to do. If you've seen Schindler's List, at the end of it, where he's talking about it, I could have saved one more. I could have got one more. I would have sold this or done that.
Yeah.
And so like today, I did abs. I ran 10 miles yesterday, but today's my day off, and I'm like, I should have run today. I should have done something. And I haven't run with anybody in a little bit. We've been working on the ranch so hard. I say there's a reason that runners aren't ranchers and ranchers aren't runners. You wind up just doing 2 jobs shitty and being doubly tired. Yeah. But my thought and what I, my vision and what I think of is, when I get to heaven, if I get to heaven, hopefully, walking up to the gates, and Peter and Jesus are sitting there and they elbow each other and kind of whisper a joke and laugh. And Jesus goes, I got my head hanging low, like, I'm fixing to get booted. And Jesus goes, "Get on in here, boy." He said, "Man," he said, "you stayed on the path." He said, "You know what both ditches look like." He said, "But, you stayed on the road." He said, "We got some people that want to see you." And so they take me into this banquet hall, and it's, got nothing but supermodels in it. I mean, the guys are bowed up, 6'3", 225, no fat. The girls are gorgeous. And I'm like, whoa, it's like, y'all stuck me in the wrong room. These are not my people, And then one comes up, and she's just gorgeous. And she says, "Hey, Dad," said, "it's me, Paisley." Said, "Up here, we look on the outside like we did on the inside down there. And we know what you did. So
that's so
the whole
awesome.
thing is trying to make that room as full as it can be.
Yeah.